Yes. Okay. Now see students, you both will be joining the 11th class batch that is here. Okay. So in that particular batch, I have actually completed the plant kingdom chapter, and I have just started the cell, the unit of life chapter. Has this chapter been done at your schools? Cell chapter?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And Leena, what about you?
No, ma'am.
No. All right. Okay. So we're going to start with this particular chapter. Now see, as far as your, you can say, preparation and reading the book goes, then NCRT book you people have? Okay. And apart from NCRT, you could also refer to the Chan book, and you can also, you can use, like, during the exam time, there are many MCQ question books that I will let you know about, that you can use for solving questions and all. And as far as your notes goes, like the notes that you get in the class, meaning the notes that I provide, I think they're like sufficient for you to prepare the whole entire chapter. So this particular notes, you pay like very close attention. Okay. Now, as far as the plant kingdom goes, we'll do backup classes for that. And talking about the cell chapter, so we'll start this chapter today. Now, see, we know that cell is the structural and functional unit of life, right? We have always heard this. Like, you might have studied this about, like, the cell in class 9th also, if you remember. So, a cell, yes, 100% it is the structural and functional unit of life. But why do we call it so? See, we call it as the structural and functional unit of life. It's because the cell is the basic necessity for any organism to be considered as living. If you can say any organism, it doesn't have to be a higher or a very evolved organism. If the organism is living, it means that it is composed of cells. If cell is not present, then the animal will not be considered as living at all. Okay. Now, every single organism, all the living organisms are made up of cell. Every single one. Like, there is no living organism that is not made up of cell. Now, when we like divide the organisms depending upon the number of cells that they have in their body, so the organisms are of two types: unicellular and multicellular. Now, if you just break the word, see, in biology, wherever you have any difficulty, just try to break down the word to understand it better. So, if we like break down uni and cellular, right? So, uni means one, cellular is made up of cell. So those organisms that are made up of just one cell, they are unicellular organisms. The example is amoeba, diatoms. The bacteria are also great example of unicellular organisms. Now, multicellular. Now, multi means more than one, right? So those organisms that are made up of more than one type of cells, those are known as the multicellular organisms. Now, these can be plants and animals. And then there are many others also that would come under this particular category. But the main thing to remember and to note down is that the organisms that are made up of more than one cells are called as multicellular organisms. Is it clear up until now? Okay. Leena, please switch on your video.
Ma'am,
Like, you can
actually,
see me. Yeah.
uh, I didn't set up
Okay.
the camera. Can I switch on in the next class onwards?
Sure, sure, sure. It's okay. All right. Now, anything less than a cell is considered as not living at all. If cell is not there, then the organism will not be considered as living. Now, if you look at the case of the unicellular organism, you would find that one cell is making their whole entire body, and this one cell is capable of independent existence. It can exist independently, meaning without the help of any other cell. So it can exist independently, and secondly, it can perform every single essential functions. So for unicellular organism, that one cell will perform the function of, you can say, respiration also. It will perform the function of reproduction also, and every single thing that the cell like the organism requires, that one cell will be capable of doing so. That is why only one cell can also be considered as a living organism. Now, initially, there was this person whose name was Robert Hooke. Now, he was the first person to ever discover a cell. So, he discovered the cell from thin slice of cork. Have you seen the bark of a tree? Right? Now, when cells are taken out from the bark of the tree, we call those as the cork cells. Now, when those cork cells were studied, Robert Hooke actually said that they were made up sort of like a honeycomb structure, and it was repeating after a number of times. So he said that the cell, it is the cell that makes up the plants, but that cell is a dead cell. So the type of cell that Robert Hooke discovered was a dead cell. Then came another person, and his name was Anton von Leeuwenhoek. Now, he discovered the first living cell, the live cell. So, their names are extremely important, Robert Hooke and Anton von Leeuwenhoek. Now, after that, people started to study more and more about the cell because, after the like discovery of living cell and after the discovery of the dead cell also, then there was the discovery of microscope was discovered. Now it was even easier for scientists to study about the structures that we cannot even see with the naked eye. So at that point of time, cell was studied even more, and a cell theory was formulated. Now it was formulated by Schleiden and Swan. Now these are two people. Schleiden is Matthias Schleiden, and him in the year 1838, he was a German botanist. Now, since he was a botanist, so he will be studying plants, and he's studied many different kinds of plants and their cells. And he said that the plants are made up of different kinds of cells. At the same time, Theodore Swan, probably around 1839, who was a British zoologist, so he studied animal cells. Both of them found out the similar kind of things, that okay, whether it is the plant cell or whether it is the animal cell, they are made up of similar components. And then they together said that plants, all the plants and all the animals are made up of cells and products of cells. Clear? Meaning, they, first of all, the basic structure of their life will be a cell. Secondly, after that, if they require any more, you can say, modifications or such, so the cell's products will be the modifications. Clear? But they, yes, they like very firmly told us that all the plants and all the animals will be made up of cells. But they never said that where is this cell coming from. They told us nothing about the origin of the cell. Like, where is it coming from? So with this came another scientist, and whose name was Rudolf Virchow. Now he explained that all the cells divide and form new cells. So the cells come from pre-existing cells, meaning the cells that are already there, they divide and give rise to the new cells. Because we know that there is no living organism that is immortal, right? Every living organism is mortal, meaning they will die after a while. Same goes for the cells. The cells are also having a typical lifespan, meaning after which the cells will die. So what happens is that when those cells die, new cells are replacing them. So where are the new cells coming from? So they are coming from the pre-existing cells. And this phenomena wherein the cells come from pre-existing cell is known as omnicellula e-cellula. It is like a fancy name to the phenomena. Okay. Now, finally, the cell theory came to, you can say, a finish, and people know more about it. And these are the main important points of the cell theory. The first is that all living organisms are made up of cells and products of cells. All cells come from pre-existing cells. And thirdly, activities of an organism are the best, like are the outcome of sum total of activities and interactions of the cell. Meaning, whatever thing that the organism requires, for example, animal requires more and more proteins. The protein synthesis happens in the cell. Animals require ATP for any kind of energy related process. ATP is synthesized in the cell only. So every single thing for the activity of organism, whatever things that they require, they come from the cell. Cells interaction, cells activities. Clear? Any doubts? Now, the cell theory is applicable to all the living organisms, but there is one exception, and that is viruses. Now, viruses are the pathogens, right? Now, viruses, if you remember coronavirus, that was also a very like major virus. Now, what happens is that the most peculiar thing about viruses is that they are dead outside the body. Meaning, if you find a virus on any like anywhere outside the body, they are dead. They are not living, and they become alive when they enter the body of the host organism. So, since you cannot actually draw a clear cut line whether are they living or are they not living, so they are defined as not truly living. So that is why viruses are an exception to the cell theory. Rest all the prokaryotic organism, meaning the lower organism, higher organism, every single organism, like the cell theory is applicable to all of them. Clear? So the introductory part of the cell theory, the two types of organisms, are all these points clear to you? Leena, what about you?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Also, students, if you have any doubts, you can ask me in the middle also. Okay. You don't have to feel shy, or you don't have to feel like, oh, I do not need to interrupt, ma'am. You can ask me in the middle also. Okay. Now you people can note it down. Also, tell me once you're done, then I'll scroll it for you. And you can switch off your video while you're writing. You can write comfortably.
Completed, ma'am.
Both of you are done?
Ma'am, 1 minute.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, done. Done, ma'am.
Both of you are done?
Yes. Done, ma'am.
Done, ma'am.
Both of you are done?
Yes, ma'am.
Done, ma'am.
Complete.
Done?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, moving forward, we're going to see what are the various components of the cell. Now, see, talking about the components of the cell has, in fact, multiple components, but some of the major ones are cell membrane, the cytoplasm, and the various cell organelles. We'll dive into like more of each of them separately, but before that, just like how we saw the division of organism depending upon the number of cells, now we'll see another division of organisms. See what happens. Everyone knows what a nucleus is. For example, this is a cell. Inside the cell, there is a place which is known as nucleus, inside of which the DNA is present. This is a nucleus, and this nucleus can be surrounded by a nuclear membrane, or it cannot be surrounded by a nuclear membrane. Now, for all those organisms whose nucleus is not surrounded by the nuclear membrane and the cell organelles are also not surrounded by any membrane, then we call those organisms as prokaryotes or prokaryotic organisms. For all those organisms that have a nuclear membrane and their cell organelles are also surrounded by membranes, then we call those organisms as eukaryotes. Clear? So these are another two like major groups of organisms. We are eukaryotic organisms. The bacteria are prokaryotic organisms. Now, talking about the differences between the prokaryotic and the eukaryotic organism. See, the prokaryotic organism, they are the most primitive ones. In fact, they were the ones that came first on the earth, long before eukaryotes ever existed. And talking about the eukaryotes, they are more advanced organisms. The prokaryotic cell or prokaryotic organism, their cell size is usually small. They are smaller in size, and the eukaryotic organisms are comparatively larger in size. Now, the ribosomes that are most commonly known as the protein factory of the cell. It is responsible for the synthesis of proteins. Now, those ribosomes in the case of prokaryotes are 70S type. 70S and 80S are the two types of ribosomes. And this is depending upon their weight. Okay, so the lighter weight ribosomes are present in prokaryotes, so it is of 70S type. And the ribosomes in the case of eukaryotes, it is of 80S type. So we have 80S ribosomes present in our body. Now, there are certain structures that help in the division of the cells, and those are known as centrioles. Now, these centrioles are absent in prokaryotic organisms, and these centrioles are present in animals, not present in plants. Okay. Now, nucleolus. Now, inside the nucleus, there is another circular structure which is known as nucleolus. Now, this is absent because they don't have a nucleus as such. How will they have the contents of the nucleus, right? So, nucleolus is absent in the case of prokaryotes and it is present in the case of eukaryotes. Now, talking about the vacuoles. Now, the true form of vacuoles, they are absent, but gas vacuoles are present in the prokaryotic organisms. In the case of eukaryotes, True vacuoles are present, but again, only in plant cells, not in animal cells. Animal cells do not have vacuoles as such. Now, talking about the additional small circular DNA segment. Now, see, apart from the main DNA, they have additional DNA that are known as plasmid. This plasmid is present in the case of prokaryotic organism, but it is absent in the case of eukaryotic organism. Clear? Any doubts up until now?
Ma'am, what do you mean by true vacuoles?
See, true vacuoles are the vacuoles that contain the, you can say, the storage products of the cell. Okay, it stores the products of the cell. But in the case of prokaryotes, since they are not, you can say their body structure is not very complex, so they do not need such a big storage structure. So they do need gas vacuoles. So the vacuoles which contain the gases, those are present in the prokaryotes. But the vacuoles, the real vacuoles that are supposed to contain the storage products, the liquid products of the cell, those are absent in them. Clear?
But why are they called true?
They are called true because they are responsible for storage purpose. Like the main function of vacuole is storage. Storage of liquids, storage of solids, storage of food. Okay, and gas vacuoles, they have no purpose of storage. They have gas present in them, and they literally have no purpose that a real vacuole is supposed to perform. That is why they have mentioned true vacuoles. Here, the vacuoles do not have a name. This true is in the sense that the vacuoles that are present in the case of eukaryotes, those are not present in prokaryotes. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay. See, one more thing, as I told you that, yeah, with this diagram, as I told you that the nucleus is surrounded by a nuclear membrane. Now, let's just talk about the prokaryotes. Now, if the nuclear membrane is not there, then the DNA is present in the cell, right? So, always remember that in the case of prokaryotic organism, the DNA is scattered in the cell. It is scattered because it has no membrane that will keep it, you can say, form a boundary around it. So it is scattered in the cell. Clear? And this, you can, like the DNA or the, you can say, genome or genetic material of prokaryotes, you can call them scattered. You can call them naked also, because again, no covering is there. So you can call them naked, and you can call them non-membrane bound. So these are all the same things. Okay, they are the different words, but they mean the same thing. So they are non-membrane bound, naked, and scattered. Any doubts? This whole thing is clear? All right. Okay. Now, see, one more thing about the prokaryotes is that, see, they, like, see, the word pro only means the first formed, or the firstly, or the primarily existing. So these are the ones that are primarily like existing. But don't think that since it is primitive, it will not suffice or do the body functions that it is supposed to, or the functions that it is supposed to. It can do most of the functions on its own. It's just that the eukaryotes have more advanced structures in their cells. They have better organization also. Also, do you people know one thing, that a group of cell is known as what?
Tissues.
Tissues.
So a group of cell is called as tissues. Then a group of tissue is called as?
Organ.
Organs.
And then the group of organ is known as?
Organ system.
Very good. Organ system. Now see, slowly, slowly, as the organism, you can say, moves towards the more advanced side. So starting with a cell, when the organism becomes a multicellular organisms, these cells, like multiple cells, they come together and they form a tissue. And in them, division of labor takes place. Meaning, now different tissues, different cells are responsible for the different functions. Clear? And then when the organism goes one step higher to the advancement, then those tissues come together and form the organ, such as we have our eye, ears, and stuff, right? And then all of those organs, they get integrated together, and then they form a proper organ system. Just like again, we have our muscular system, we have our digestive system, right? So as the organism moves from unicellularity towards the multicellularity, you can say the complexities in their structure also increases and their functions also increases. Clear? Any doubts up until now? Okay. Now you people can note down.
Noted, ma'am. Done.
Done, ma'am.